Alright, let's talk about the Age of Enlightenment. You know it, it's that time in history when a bunch of rich, bored aristocrats decided that sitting around, drinking wine wasn't sophisticated enough, so they invented reason as the new status symbol. It was the 17th and 18th centuries, and Europe was basically one giant club, and the membership dues, you had to be smart. Specifically, you had to be smart about how much you hated the church and the king. The Enlightenment wasn't the grassroots movements, it was an elite hobby, it was a club for intellectual upper crust. The coffee house was the clubhouse of this era, it was the original Twitter, it was a loud, smoky room filled with guys in wigs shouting about abstract concepts that nobody else in their daily lives gave a damn about. They called themselves philosophes, which is just a fancy French way of saying guys who think they're smarter than you. They would sit there for hours debating whether human beings were naturally good or naturally selfish, all while living in society where the average peasant was too busy starving to care about metaphysics. And who were these titans of thoughts? Voltaire, Rousseau, Montesquieu, guys who spent their lives writing books that nobody read because they were written in dead languages and filled with complex sentences. They were basically the influencer of the 1700s. They wanted to change the world but didn't want to get their hands dirty. They preferred to critique the government from the comfort of their chateaus. They championed ideas like individual liberty and the separation of church and state. Sounds great, right? It is, unless you are the king who just lost your power or the pope who just lost his tax revenue. The Enlightenment was essentially a giant philosophical tantrum against authority. They looked at the messy world around them and said, this is stupid, we can do better, we can use logic and science and, well, mostly just more logic. And logic worked out great for them, didn't it? It led straight to the French Revolution. It's like a bunch of people who are convinced that all men are created equal, put them in a country where everyone is starving and the king is bankrupt, and what happens? You get a guillotine. The Enlightenment was a spark, but the reality was a bloody mess. The rich guys who came up with the ideas about freedom and rights, they were often the first to be beheaded when the mob got angry. So was the Enlightenment a brilliant awakening of human potential? Sure, but mostly it was a bunch of privileged dudes in Europe deciding that sitting around and thinking was a legitimate way to spend their time. It was the first time in history that having a real big brain was considered a sport, and boy did they play it well.